Wow, I feel tired just thinking about that job, actually. I feel a little sorry for all the editors and chiefs who have to look at all my papers and hit reject now. Now I feel sad for I think you brought up a
Not
really
easy to, let me tell you, it's not easy to reject a paper. We
yeah,
know the work that went into it, but if we feel that the paper is not rigorous, or that it has not made its point, or that there are aspects that are missing, and maybe those aspects are critical and cannot be and are fatal flaws,
yeah,
then there's no alternative but to reject a paper, despite the amount of work that may have gone into it. So you have to be um, tough sometimes, because you want science to move forward as rigorously as possible, so that you will not find that the findings are then demonstrated not to be actually true findings, and that other papers will reject what you have accepted in as a manuscript in your journal. So it's every decision is a critical decision that one makes. And I have to say that, uh, now, since what, 2003, when I was asked to become associate editor of Hypertension, and since 2016 that I became editor in chief of this journal, I'm connected all the time. Not 24/7, I do sleep, but wherever I am in the world, traveling, and of course during the pandemic we've traveled less, but wherever I'm traveling, I'm making decisions or sending off papers for review and so on, because we want this process to be as quick as possible, so that authors get their decision as fast as we can, as rigorously as we can, as fair as we can.
wow. Well, I'm not really sure about the sleeping aspect, but it definitely sounds like it's a lot of work. I think you brought up a really important question, a really important point. You were talking about getting reviewers, and you were saying, you send out reviewers to, 4, 5, 6, maybe 12. And I've heard this from not just you, but from other colleagues and past mentors, current mentors who are editors and editors in chiefs at other journals. And they say that getting reviewers is getting more and more difficult. What do you have any thoughts about that, about what that means, or the future of publishing?
Yes, so, I myself review for several journals that ask me to review papers in my area of expertise, and I don't always say yes.
Yeah,
There are limitations of time. One is very busy, and I accept that most people who are in this field are very busy, whether they're physicians or pure scientists. There's very little time left to do work for others that is anonymous, that is for free, that is demanding, that requires knowledge and concentration, and often many hours trying to understand and, as I said, tear apart a manuscript and the methods and the results and the discussion uh, in order to produce a fair, appropriate, rigorous review. So it's a lot of work, and you're solicited from many journals, sometimes at the same time, sometimes several times by the same journal, by different editors who don't know that you've been solicited by somebody else within the journal. And so it is a little overwhelming, and sometimes you just can't do it. You're overcommitted, you're just too busy, or you're traveling, or you're on vacation, or whatever. There are always umpteen reasons why reviewers refuse to review, and many of them are absolutely valid reasons. So it's tough, it's difficult to get reviewers, enough reviewers. You want several, Sometimes you can't have several. Sometimes the subject is a little esoteric, and there are not so many people who work in that area or who can review the particular manuscript. So it's not easy, and we all have trouble getting enough reviewers. Different approaches have been looked at. Some people provide different kinds of gifts.
Incentives.
Uh, it's been discussed, should reviewers be paid? But reviewers are not paid for their work. There was a journal that used to send CDs as a way of saying thank you.
Like music CDs?
Yes.
Really?
I will not say which journal. Very, very important, extremely high impact journal.
Wow.
So, you know, it's sometimes you get the opportunity to write an editorial as a reviewer for the article. I always choose as authors of the editorials one of the reviewers. And so you know, there is a return. You are on top of the latest science. You see what other people are doing. You get ideas. Of course, it's work that is totally confidential. That's very important. So what are the things that are important? Honesty, fairness, rigor, confidentiality, and very important job, because the reviewers are the stewards of the rigor with which science is produced. And if anything will remain from what we do, it is our publications. And they steer the way that science moves forward. So of course, it is extremely important that we apply the greatest rigor, and that we should be very strict in our approach to reviewing. And it's a very demanding job. So it's not surprising that it is difficult to get reviewers.
That's fabulous. And for all the listeners out there, you know, if you get an invite to review a paper from the American Journal of Hypertension, hit accept. For all you know, Dr. Schiffrin may invite you to write an editorial. But we talked about the reviewers. What about the authors? You know, do you have any advice for prospective authors who are thinking to submit their science at the American Journal of Hypertension? You know, what kind of papers are you open? And what are the common pitfalls and mistakes that you see that people could avoid?
So my first thing would be, make sure that your manuscript falls within the area that the journal covers. Our journal or any other journal, we do get manuscripts that barely fit within our field. And what happens is that one makes a rapid editorial decision and rejects without review those manuscripts that either don't fit, that we don't think the readers of the journal will appreciate, those manuscripts that have not followed the rules that the journal requires for submission. If a manuscript is not written in reasonable English, it won't fly. So we needed to communicate in proper language its goals and objectives and the results of its experiments or its whatever it's about. So these are important aspects. And so sometimes we will return a manuscript requesting that it be rewritten by a native English speaker, because we need the grammar and the syntax to be appropriate, because it is critical for comprehension. And of course, comprehension of the science is fundamental. Figures have to be of high quality. So all of this is present in the instructions for authors that should be followed in detail and rigorously. The same thing for the formatting of references. You know, each journal, you know, has references that are formatted according to certain rules. Many journals follow the same rules, but many journals follow different rules. And so you have to pay attention and format your references using some kind of reference manager appropriately. And finally, you know, we always like to have graphical abstracts, and but it's not indispensable, but it's very useful. Graphical abstracts present the work in an image, and an image is worth 1,000 words, we say often. So there are all these aspects that ensure the successful submission and eventual acceptance of the manuscript. But of course, number one, the originality of the science, the reasoning behind the science that is produced, the rigor with which the results have been obtained, the statistical analysis, and the writing that has to be succinct but detailed. So it's important to learn how to write and present science in an appropriate way that will be understood easily, and that will, again, advance knowledge. That's what we're all about, advancing knowledge. And advancing knowledge results in improved outcomes for our patients, from basic science all the way to health services research.
Fabulous. That's very useful advice.
Yeah. You know, not all of us had a past mentor. My PhD mentor, Dr. Clinton Webb, was a huge fan of the grammar. And so not everyone has one Clinton Webb to destroy their manuscript in the past. So I can understand how it would be a struggle. You know, also too, for those who are listening, American Journal of Hypertension, we actually put your graphical abstracts when we tweet out your papers. So, you know, graphical abstract actually sort of draws the readers in. So if they become more interested and will read your paper. So we hope that you submit that with your article. You know,